course, we will see exactly how the Prime Minister reacts in Prime Minister's questions later today, of course, and we will bring you that live at 12 o'clock. Now, there are reports that the government could delay the implementation of full border checks for goods imported into the UK from the EU. The Politics Home News website says the system was supposed to change on July 1st. But a delay could be announced soon. Now, some industry representatives have supported the move to delay. The Financial Times says that some in government are sympathetic to changing the date so that there's less pressure on businesses which rely on EU imports. Now, Shane Brennan is the chief executive of the Cold Chain Federation. Now, this is an industry body which represents transporters of chilled food. Shane, morning to you.
Good morning.
Morning. Can you take us through kind of what these checks were going to be in terms of what's changed and when they were supposed to come in?
Yeah, so these are specifically checks that relate to meat, dairy and fish goods that require veterinary checks in order to be imported across a third country border. Those checks are in place now for our food exports to the EU. They've been in place since the 1st of January 2022. What's being delayed and is now potentially going to be delayed further after the 1st of July is requiring those checks on the food goods coming into the UK.
Right. How have businesses prepared for this? Are they prepared and are the changes in place for them?
So businesses have been working very hard to prepare. Obviously, we've got a lot of experience of how to do it on the export legs. But the crucial issue here is that the businesses that are affected by this last round of checks are businesses across the European Union. We're talking about food producers in every part of Europe. And we just don't have a lot of visibility about how prepared those businesses are or what reaction they will have to those controls. What we do know is what the UK exporters did, which is a large number of those UK exporters stopped trading with the EU after the 1st of January, particularly the smaller exporters, those that don't send large volumes like full lorry loads every day across the border. Those that were doing smaller quantities stopped doing it, and we're very fearful that will happen for goods coming into the country after the 1st of July if these checks go ahead.
Do these checks have to come in, these changes?
Well, that's what we agreed in our Brexit deal. That's what the UK and EU signed an agreement about just before January 21. But obviously, it's up to our ministers to decide to actually go ahead and implement them. We've delayed them this far. And our view is that given the pressure we're under in our supply chain right now, we should carry on with that delay for that much longer in order to get us through this particular window of pressure.
Hasn't there been a concern there? I think it was Jacob Rees-Mogg who was saying that very insecure, concerned about insecure borders because there weren't thoroughly checked imported goods.
Well, I think Jacob Rees-Mogg is I think reported as the person that's pushing for these controls not to be brought in. I guess there are concerns about whether ultimately we need to maintain our food security, and we have to make a judgment on whether or not having a vet sign off on the goods that dispatch from a part of the European Union into the UK presents a food safety risk to the UK or not. We've taken a view up to now, and we took the view the entire time we're in a single market that the EU's rules were good enough for us, and we don't need to make further controls to do so. So the point being that nothing's changed from today to the 1st of July, so we should carry on without putting those controls on in the short term in order to allow our supply chains to get through what is a really difficult period.
Do you know what I find weird? I find it weird that if you're an EU exporter and you're moving goods to the UK, the friction is significantly less than if you're a UK exporter to the EU. How was that agreed?
Well, it wasn't really agreed. The agreement says that the same will apply both ways, but the EU takes an enforcement approach, which is to enforce the law as it was agreed, as they would with any country that is not part of their single market. Whereas we take the view that in part of the transition, we want to ease that disruption of those checks by giving greater time for preparation. The problem is even with the time we've had so far, we can't be certain, in fact, we're pretty sure, that disruption would still be pretty painful after the 1st of July. And so it's probably not the right time to be imposing that when we've got so many other inflationary pressures and disruptions in our supply chains.
Well, this is it as well. I mean, it's not just the new checks. COVID, the war in Ukraine, energy prices, high energy prices. How much has all of this impacted?
It's had a huge impact on our supply chain. I mean, we're standing up to it. We have proved throughout this period that we can keep our food supply secure. And I have no doubt we'll carry on doing that. But why add additional pressure at this time? It is a particularly difficult period for businesses that want to buy and sell goods, businesses that transport goods. So let's not put that additional pressure on right now. I guess the other thing I would say, of course, is if we do delay, we should use that delay to rethink how we do this and actually come up with a better way of implementing the rules for the long term and not just kick the can down the road.
Which businesses are you concerned about the most?
So it's businesses that rely on small volumes of goods frequently delivered. So it's 1 to 5 pallets, so not full lorry loads. Now that predominantly means smaller businesses. It predominantly means businesses that are restaurants and delicatessens and specialist foods in particular. But the specialist foods are sold by businesses of all sizes. It's really about the type of supply chain that gets most worst affected, the less than full load deliveries that would be affected. And that's why there is no solution to that problem. It's not about more time, it's about coming up with a new model.
Shane, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Shane Brennan there, the Chief Executive of the Cold Chain Federation. That's the body which represents transporters of chilled food. Don't forget, Prime Minister's questions coming up in half an hour. First, though,